everyone's still there, and I was just like talking at people and fumbling with the thing, so sorry. All right, so we're doing an energy blend today. We have, probably one of the most common questions that people ask is, how to increase energy. We have a formula for energy. Hi, and I love those discussions, and I'm frustrated by those discussions only because our interpretation of what energy is complex and individual, and is muddied by how the dominant culture sees energy, and how we've kind of lost our sense of nuance in that, right? And our ability to kind of check into ourselves and see, what it is, what do we need to feel the vitality, to feel the vibrancy, to feel true energy in our bodies. What do we need for that? And that's really the question that we want to ask, not, what can I take instead of coffee to give me energy? Well, let's look at, good morning, Teresa. Let's look at kind of what we think about when we think about energy, right? Because if we're going to make a formula for that, we have to kind of conceptualize that and differentiate what we mean by what culture tells us. Hi, Marcos, you're on time. So what do we mean by energy? What do you think of when you think of energy? If you were to ask me to blend a tea blend for you for energy, what would you be asking about? What does energy feel like in your body? ATP. Hey! Hi. Increased, make sure I'm writing where you can see me. Increased ATP. So ATP is adenosine triphosphate. It's the molecule in the cells that fuels the Krebs cycle, the energy production cycle in the mitochondria of the cells. So Leuven was getting very, very, very specific in energy production. So what does that feel like then when you have increased ATP in your muscles, if you were to kind of quantify, because that's a specific physiological response, but we're looking for what does that feel like. The question that we're asking is, what does energy feel like in your body?
Oh, what a good question.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. I know for me it does come in, like, two things come to mind right away. One is the physical, and one is
Physical and mental?
yeah.
Okay, so that's an important distinction. So we have physical, energy, and then we have mental energy. And so what does physical energy feel like?
I think it's like a reserve.
A reserve.
Power.
Yeah. So you're not just kind of trying to fuel what isn't there, but building up that kind of well of potential energy, increasing that potential energy. Yeah.
Maybe like a grounding.
Grounding.
Or stability. Yeah.
Grounding. And so do you feel that as more of a physical or a mental or both? Both. And then also here, yeah. And I would say that also would be applicable to mental energy too, that reserve, in fact, possibly even more so, right? For me anyway, in my body, the mental reserve to deal with stuff tends to get depleted long before the physical reserve to do stuff gets depleted, right?
I think of, when you say physical, immediately I think of ghee,
Mm-hmm.
puppy, where they're like this, like just quick. They're just like, a sit is faster than the blink of my eyes, like that. It's like, I wish I could feel like that.
Right.
Did I ever feel like that? Wow.
Yeah. So that puppy energy, that young, and we see that in children, right? Children can run around nonstop, and constantly we ask them, where does that come from? Where does that, and that also, that is that reserve. It feels like they have an unquenchable reserve of energy as do puppies.
Like a feeling of unstuck. Right?
Unstuckness. And then you said something else after that, right? That I liked. What was that?
I said, I was thinking of the gunas from Raja, so, I don't remember what the
Okay,
other word
but it
I
was
said.
something
Oh,
having to do with like flow, movement,
Ability of transformation.
transformation. Nice, yeah. Yeah, so oftentimes we feel that feeling of movement, right? Of life, right? Teresa, revived spark. Revived spark. And oh, Noheli says, agree, I wish I could get up and go like my dogs. Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Ren. Good morning. Yeah. So yeah, revived spark. So
Did you want to mention chi?
Chi. So tell us about Chi. So here's a challenge when we bring in language from other traditions is that there's nuance there. There's a reason why this language is used because it holds levels and levels and levels. So tell us, expand on the concept of Chi for us.
My understanding it has to do with the energy flows in the body, and there can be areas of stagnation in the energy where it gets stuck. You might have like cramping, for instance, maybe as a indication.
Right.
Areas of heaviness in the body.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. So Leuven's talking about qi, right? The concept in traditional Chinese medicine of energy flow moving through the body. Again, that concept of movement, right? And the thing that opposes that is that stagnation, that stuckness, right? So we find different language around that, but it kind of leads us to the same thing. And when we can understand things like this, and also, so this feeling of grounding, right, can feel deeply nourishing, can feel like that grounding, can feel like, oh, now I'm kind of connected to a source. Now I'm connected to a reserve, right? Now I can kind of reach down and pull up that energy and have that kind of fuel my upward growth like a plant does, right? But if someone has more of that kind of stagnant, cold energy, then something is grounding that for someone whose energy is all frenetic and all over the place, and it's like, I just can't collect and focus my energy. It's all over there. That grounding feeling might feel wonderful and give us that sense. But that person who's kind of cold and damp and stagnant, to them that grounding feeling might be just opposite of what they want. It might be more of that stagnation, more of that cold, when what they need is some of that fire and movement. And the cutest dog holding his toy in his mouth just went by. Big ol', huh? This was like 10 geese all in a big dog costume walking around. Gee totally would do that. And so we also want to kind of consider what does energy feel like in that way, right? Does energy feel like we want to be grounded? Is that going to be a helpful concept for us? Or does it feel like we need to be pulled up out of that ground and get some upward movement? We want that kind of movement, right? And of course, the perfect balance for us is some type of a balance in that between grounding and movement, right? That combination is so often, I mean, we've talked about that before. This has actually nothing to do with this, but it's a similar kind of duality that equates to health. And that's when we look at the concept of drying herbs versus moistening herbs, and we look at effects on mucous membranes, right? We look at the effects on tissues. Optimal health of tissue is to be nice and strong and healthy, but also juicy. And strong and healthy tissues generally tend to limit movement of fluids through them, which is why when we drink astringent plants, our mouth gets kind of dry, right? It's not that it's a drying plant, it's that it's astringing and tightening, tonifying those tissues. And so dryness is kind of an artifact of that, but it's not the quality. It's not actually stopping dryness. It's allowing our body to hold on to that dryness. And if we look at the perfect tissue state of, say, mucous membranes in our mouth, it's that nice tonified strengthened tissue state and a layer of juicy mucus over that, right? It's that both. That happens so often in our body, these complex systems. We want to kind of hit that, what feels balanced in our body without subscribing to the concept of health is being in the neutral state, right? We don't want to look at normalization or seeking this flat line as that's what optimal health means. Optimal health in my body, of course, is going to look different from all of your bodies. Noheli says, I have a cold and dry constitution. Yeah, so for you, that feeling of grounding might have to be modified with something that gives you some of that movement, because too much of that grounding is going to feel like you're just more cold and stagnant. But hi, good morning, come on in. I'm suffering from very low energy levels many times a week, says Marcus. Oh, plus Marcus, you're just doing so much. Hi, go ahead and have a seat there. So with that in mind, this is going to be less fun for you folks watching, unfortunately, this next part, because I have a bunch of herbs on the table here, and I'm going to invite folks who are here in class to make a tea blend for yourself with kind of the concepts of what ways plants can give us kind of these goals, right? Can help us to meet those goals of what energy feels like in our body at this time. I do invite you to kind of go through your apothecary at home and do something like this with what you have available. Hi, Abahita. More oxygenation in the cells, or maybe increasing metabolic function. Yeah. Could increase energy, also stimulants, and nutritive plants over the long term. Well, there's Abahita just taught the class, and so yep, that's kind of pretty much exactly it, right? And all of that is going to feel different. And what I love about your answer, Abahita, is it does acknowledge that diversity. Immediate energy is sometimes what we need and what we want, and it's okay to want immediate energy. I am not telling people that they should not have their caffeine or tea or whatever gives them that immediate energy. I am saying that we want to expand what we think of when we mean energy, because also sometimes it doesn't feel good. Hi, sometimes that type of energy doesn't feel good, and even if we're like gotta drink our coffee every day, that's not ultimately what we're looking for. And if we can expand our concepts of what energy feels like and looks like in our body, then we can start to bring in other plants, other things to support energy levels, and that can help us to move away from, to expand those concepts, to expand how we feel about energy. We're talking about energy. And kind of give a little bit more wide-ranging support to our bodies so that we're not reliant on one type of energy. We're not limiting our understanding of what that means, and we're checking in with ourselves more often and asking, what do I need at this moment for me to feel that vitality, that renewed spark, that all of that language that all of us are using.
It makes me think of like the reservoir that you were talking about, and sometimes, at least for me, if I use those kind of stimulants, I'm not relying on that reservoir, so I can't always tell if it's depleted, and then when you don't have the stimulant, it's like, oh wow.
Yes, I have no reservoir. I guess I'm going back to bed. Yeah, that's such an important concept. And those stimulants, unfortunately, make us feel like we have a reservoir. They're like, totally have a reservoir. I just drink coffee, so now I have a reservoir, so now I can go do stuff, right? I'll do stuff all day, and then all of a sudden we realize that that reservoir we tapped into even more. So it was empty, and we made it even emptier. right? Because we were pulling on what wasn't there. Noheli says, absolutely, I constantly fall into a freeze mode because of the constant fatigue I feel. Yeah, you know, and so another concept with the idea of caffeine as a stimulant, that immediate stimulation as a stimulant, when we feel that immediate stimulation, that increased energy, it's absolutely increased energy, but the message, the language of caffeine in our bodies is a language of sympathetic dominance. It's that fight or flight state. We are stimulating an adrenal response. We're telling our body, you are not safe, and you had better increase your vitality, you better increase your awareness, increase the sugar getting into your muscles, because you're going to need to run away or deal with the monster. And so we're constantly getting that message, and that is a message that opposes a feeling of grounding and unstuckness, right? It can dig us even deeper in there, and it is a feeling that pulls from that well even more. So it's okay to use that. I am not saying that we can't use caffeine if and when we want to. I am saying that we want to be aware of what it costs us, all right? So yeah, so yes.
So, considering that there could be stuckness somewhere, because like chi is not flowing well,
Right.
and there's the short term
Yep.
stuff like caffeine,
Right.
what kind of herbs are more like expansive with that
Right.
reservoir versus
Yeah. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. That's a good number. Oh, I made some tea for y'all too. Since we're not going to be tasting anything or doing anything, I thought you should have tea. So this is our bloom tea. If you want to grab teacups over there on the side, you know where the teacups are. Can I have you just take the thank you. Tip your wait staff. What was I saying?
something about the herbs and the reservoir question?
The reservoir question.
I was asking about
Oh, yes, I'm gonna go over so I brought a bunch of herbs as exemplars of basic concepts, right? They're certainly by no means the only herbs that we could use for these. These are the ones that when I was standing in front of the apothecary said, ooh, pick me, I wanna go play. Oh, look at you folks, thank you so much.
Do you want a cup?
I would love one, and I've got clean ones right over there. We just washed and brought over. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is our bloom blend, the tea blend. This is our bloom blend, so it's tulsi and cinnamon and honeybush and linden. It's so good. It's so wonderful. It's the most delicious tea. Yes. Okay. Oh, thank you, Noheli. That's so sweet. That's very nice of you. Yeah, I'm hoping you can join us. All right, so I'm going to go through the plants that I have in front of us, and I'm going to go over some basic concepts. I want you, as we're talking about these plants, to make some notes about what plants sound like they are going to give you the support that you need in that focus of increased energy. And while I could do I need to change the batteries. I keep on looking up at that clock, and it's a very unhelpful clock because it says that it's 9:45 right now. And I keep on interrupting myself, and then I lose track of what I'm saying. I'm going to go over the plants. You're going to decide on what plants you want, and then you're going to make a formula. I'll go over kind of quick formulation concepts with you. Yes?
What's best to optimize how many?
What's best to optimize how many herbs in your formula?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a
Would be
great
too much,
question.
or like,
Right.
not enough?
So the thing that you want to be mindful of whenever you're making an herbal formula is the more stuff in your formula, the less of each individual item is going to be in your formula, right? If you make a tea blend of just nettles, then you're going to be getting all the nettles, and that's going to be great. If you make a tea blend of nettles and gotu kola, Now you've got half nettles and gotu kola, and there's both a synergy of both of them working together and increasing the efficacy and playing together, right? That's a wonderful thing. And also, you have half the amount of nettles that you had, right? And if you add another thing, more synergy and also decrease. And so there's a cost-benefit analysis that is very individual because it depends on what part of that is more important to you. Are you looking for more of that synergy, or are you looking for more of just the effect of one single plant? And sometimes you can find one plant that's like, that is the plant that I need. That is a specific for me. Is what I need is linden, and I'm just going to drink linden tea, and that's just going to be, me and linden are just going to have this wonderful relationship. And sometimes that can be really wonderful, and that's all you need, and it's beautiful when that happens. But sometimes you need more plants to come on. If I tend to stop at about 5,
Okay.
and sometimes 7. And I like odd numbers, and 5 and 7 are numbers that are very pleasing to me, and you might have different numbers that are very pleasing to you. And sometimes that's the answer is because it's 5 and I like to do 5, and that's also a valid answer for specific types of blends, right? Maybe you want to invoke the power of whatever 5 means to you, if that number has a lot of meaning to you, right? Maybe that's a reason why 5 is there. And maybe you want to be much more logical about it and say, well, but that's 1/5 the amount of linden, and I really like linden, so I'm going to need to go down, right? So there's no specific answer unless you're looking for very specific clinical effects, and then you're looking for specific dosing strategies, and then you might be a little bit more focused, right?
Okay.
Even then, we think that we know specific dosing strategies, and we totally don't. And anytime we use a language like that, most of the time we're just kind of making stuff up. So take as much as you need of what you need to feel good for you. All right, give me one of the first plants here. Rosemary, I see rosemary there. So let's talk about plants to move energy, right? So moving energy came up a lot, and that feeling of movement is activity. And activity comes in a physiological effect, in a chemical effect, in a thermal effect, in an energy effect, in a vitality, and a metabolic effect, in every effect. Energy heat, creates warmth, creates vitality, creates movement, right? And so things that warm our body up, that increase that energy, that increase that flow, are things that often give us that feeling of energy. While at the same time we want to be mindful of our constitutional tendencies, right? If our body tends to be very hot and very dry, then those very warming and stimulating plants may not feel so good to us, and we might have to modify them, balance it out with other ingredients. Or it might just be that, man, all I want is a cup of strong rosemary tea, and I'm gonna feel like just alive and awake, right? So let's look at those things that are warming, that are stimulating, that are moving flow. So we have rosemary, and rosemary has an affinity for the brain, right? It's helpful for clarity of thought and focus. So if that feeling of energy also means a feeling of clarity of thought, then rosemary is a particularly good plant for that. It's not too terribly warming, but it is very nice and warming, and it's got a really lovely effect on circulation also, right? Moving blood throughout the body. We could also use ginger. Ginger is warming in a very different way than rosemary, right? So we don't have necessarily the mental function. With ginger, we have much more of a warmth of energy in the core of the body, right? We're warming energy here, whereas rosemary's really warming energy kind of through the periphery, increasing that peripheral circulation of the brain. Ginger's warming here. So do we need that warmth in our core? Is that where our energy is going to radiate from, right? For some people, that might be it. For some people, there's too much heat and warmth here, and throwing more heat is going to be problematic, right? They might feel warmth, increased energy in their body, but they also might have increased gastric inflammation and irritation because they have a lot of heat in their gut, and that ginger didn't feel too good for them, right? So, prickly ash. When warming herbs are too warm for you, what if you want that warmth, you want that movement and vitality, but you have a hot, dry constitution, and so all of the herbs that are warming the body tend to be hot and dry. What you want is plants like prickly ash, or a related plant is Szechuan.
Peppercorn?
Yeah, trying to remember how to spell Szechuan. I'm always, see, no. How do you spell Szechuan, folks? No, I'm not. Szechuan. Someone knows how to spell Szechuan. Hey, Des. Hello, love. How do you spell Szechuan, Des? Szechuan. I'm not going to spend the rest of the day figuring out how to spell Szechuan. It's something like that. Szechuan peppercorns. So Szechuan peppercorns are the seeds of the xanthoxylum plant, right? And prickly ash is the bark of xanthoxylum. So it has similar chemistries, just one is the fruit and one is the bark. So Chinese 5-spice blend. If you don't think you've had Szechuan peppercorn, another very good dog walking by. Szechuan peppercorns have a tingling, numbing feel on the in the mouth, and prickly ash. And what are other plants that have similar chemistry? Oh, thanks, Des. S-Z-E-C-H-U. Yep, I got them. S-Z-E. Szechuan peppercorns. Thank you. Thanks, Des. So, other plants that have similar chemistry to prickly ash and Szechuan peppercorns. 5 points for anyone who knows similar chemistry, unrelated. Schisandra is a very good guess. No, but I'm going to write down. Did I bring Schisandra? I didn't bring Schisandra. No. Things that are numbing and tingling to the mouth.
Black pepper.
Echinacea, yep. Black pepper has a similar acrid flavor, but I'm thinking of spilanthes. So, spilanthes, echinacea, Szechuan peppercorns, prickly ash, all contain compounds called isobutylamides that have that tingling, numbing, moving sensation. They're very stimulating to the body, but they are not warming in the same way that rosemary and ginger. They don't have the resinous compounds that are very warming and can be very irritating to overheated bodies. So I really love prickly ash as a plant to move that stuck energy, move that stagnation, but really nice for bodies that do tend to be overheated or have a lot of heat kind of in the gut or in the circulatory system where they don't necessarily need that warming. Can you write this compound? I can. So we're looking at a couple of different, I'm going to move. So it is isobutylamides, also known as alkylamides. Those are the compounds. So that numbing, tingly sensation that you feel in them. I have some prickly ash tincture right here. So I'll pass around a tincture. Y'all can try some. This is a tincture, which means it has alcohol in it. So if you don't use alcohol, you can just pass this one by. But if you never tried a plant with this compound in it, it's very interesting feeling, and you're going to drool because they're also sialagogues. They stimulate flow of saliva in your body too. Yeah, but you can feel that tingling and movement immediately. So do we have any other energy movers out here? I think that's about it in terms of the strong energy movers. So these are our primary energy movers. I didn't bring these ones. I just brought this prickly ash.
Isobutylamide, is that soluble in water?
They are poorly soluble in water. Actually, alkylamides are more soluble in alcohol and in oil. So they will extract in water, because you can make a spilanthes tea, you can make a prickly ash tea, and you're going to feel these qualities. But if you wanted to bump that up, yep, you'd be better off making a tincture. Yeah.
How do you use this in class?
Oh, we put it on the back of your hand, and you have a little kind of a flap of skin in between your finger and your thumb that can hold just a little bit of tincture right there. And that is how herbalists and herb class taste their tinctures. So you can be all hip and go, yeah.
Speaking of tea, did you want a class of tea?
I did want some tea. Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you so much. I have my cup. I just didn't get my tea. Thank you. Okay, so that's one way of increasing energy. Another way of increasing energy is to use compounds that are what are known as cephalics. So this is stimulating circulation, right? So we can also stimulate mental clarity, right? And for this, now we can also use rosemary. It's very handy and very common that a plant will overlap in the qualities that we want, right? So rosemary for specifically when we're looking at mental clarity. Gotu kola is one of my favorites, and I'm always going to use gotu kola in conditions like this because it tastes really nice. It's very soluble in water, so it makes a really nice tea. And it's very supportive and nourishing to the body, to the brain function, to the skin. It's an adaptogen. It helps to regulate stress response. It is just lovely. So most people do really well with gotu kola. It is what's called in Ayurvedic medicine, what's known as a medhya rasayana. A rasayana is a plant that is appropriate for all body types. So we talk quite often about plants that have affinities for specific types of plants, of bodies. And then there's also the plants that are like, you have a body, go ahead and take me. I'm just good for you. I'm just nourishing and balancing. A medhya rasayana is a plant that also has balancing and normalizing effects to mental conditions. So irrespective of whether you have overstimulation or understimulation, or you need nourishment of the brain and nervous system, it's like gotu kola is just going to be nourishing and supportive and lovely and building. So love that. We also have basil. So we are not using tulsi. This is sweet basil or culinary basil, but culinary basil is a cephalic. It is a plant that improves brain function, mental clarity, and mental focus. In Europe, we see a lot of research on the use of basil, of sweet basil, for specifically for ADD, for ADHD, for learning disorders, for support of the nervous system in that way, and with some great responses. I do tend to think that there is a lot more similarity, thank you for my tea, that there's a lot more similarity between holy basil, tulsi, and culinary basil than we generally think. I think they're closer in their chemistry and their action. Oh, that's such good tea. Than we tend to think. So if you wanted to use tulsi for this, you absolutely could. But generally, when we're looking specifically for a cephalic, for something that's increasing mental clarity and focus and learning and memory, we're looking at sweet basil. Let's see, I'm trying to read. What is that one right there? Oh, mimosa. So civic mental clarity, we could also throw in there, not so much expanding the idea of mental clarity, expanding sensitivity and ability to take in information of our nervous system, right? So the brain is one part of our nervous system that takes in information, but of course we're taking information from all parts of our nervous system, all times of the day. And so one of the plants that I really like that enhances the sensitivity of the nervous system for taking in information, and that can also feel very energizing, feel like it's increasing our vitality and our kind of awareness, is Damiana. So we tend to think of Damiana. Damiana's former name is Turnera aphrodisiaca, kind of compartmentalized as an aphrodisiac. But I think that Damiana is really, really effective in increasing the sensory experience of the body. And while we do tend to kind of focus that quality in terms of sensuality and sexuality, I think it's also really helpful to kind of think about all of the other ways that that can increase our enjoyment of stuff, of everything that we experience in our body, right? If you just want to experience more, and this can be particularly beneficial for those people who do feel like that lack of energy is more a feeling of being cut off from connection and sensory input, right? Just kind of feel dead and non-responsive. Damiana can be a way of kind of opening that up. We do always want to say that that can also feel unsafe and unwelcome to those people who have overwhelming sensory overload, that the world that we live in is just constantly barraging them with information and sensory input, and that cannot feel good, and that cannot feel safe. And so for some people, the use of Damiana can be lovely for increasing that sensory awareness. And Damiana is warming and stimulating also, right? So it's stimulating circulation, it's stimulating sensory input, and so it can feel really lovely. I do think that it is more of a tropho-restorative, that it's feeding and nourishing the nervous system as well, so there's a more of a long-term effect with Damiana too. In much the same way that we use milky oats as a long-term supportive, nourishing compound for bodies, but where milky oats tends to be cooling and moistening and soothing, and that way Damiana is much more fiery and warming and stimulating. Movement, heat, circulation, yeah. Yeah, so peppermint, no, Haley, peppermint is an interesting one because peppermint, no, is peppermint warming or cooling?
It's cool.
But it's very stimulating, right? Peppermint, what is more stimulating and wakes up energy for you than peppermint, right? Peppermint is just kind of very, very stimulating, but it is also very cooling. The cooling effect we feel from peppermint is really a quality of the menthol, right? Menthol, when it goes over our tissues, is very cooling feeling. And so we get that feeling of cooling from peppermint, and we also get a warming and stimulating quality from peppermint because it's very warming and stimulating. It's definitely moving energy. So is it cooling? Is it warming? I think it's both, right? And it also kind of depends on what exactly you're qualifying as, what we mean by warming, right, and cooling. Could go on all day with that too, but it's long enough as it is. Yeah, so cooling and warming. Let's see. So we have basil, prickly ash, Damiana. So Damiana is supportive to nervous system support, right? This can also be nervous system. If I go down here, you can still sort of read that. So stimulating clarity, supporting the nervous system in increasing energy. We can certainly use Damiana. Here again, we have kind of overlap here. One plant that I brought in that works very differently, that might be very beneficial for people, is mimosa bark. So mimosa bark is Albizia julibritsin. We have a little Albizia tree out there on the patio. Mimosa bark comes from Chinese medicine. It's known as the tree of happiness. Mimosa bark is used for elevating mood, for just helping when we're feeling just in a funk, when we're feeling just in a funk. It is a lovely uplifting nervine. And so sometimes when we're asking ourselves, you know, we're low in energy, we're low in that vitality, sometimes it's just that we feel unhappy. We just don't feel pleased by the world. And sometimes we just need a little bit of support for that. We're not pathologizing our unhappiness with the world. It is good and right to be unhappy with the world right now. There's a lot to be unhappy with. But also sometimes you just don't want to feel the unhappiness. Sometimes you're just exhausted from feeling unhappy about stuff, right? And you just want to break from it. And if you could just get that break from the feelings of grief and sorrow, then maybe you could tap into that energy. And that's what I like using mimosa bark for. So not ignoring your grief, not ignoring your sorrow, not telling you that it's not right to feel that way. It's right to feel whatever way you feel. But if you're sick and tired of feeling that way and you just want some respite, that's what I really love mimosa bark for.
Can you use the flower as well?
Yes, yeah. So the flowers are super happy, friendly little pink flowers. Someone said they look like a truffula tree, right? They're totally from the Lorax. They are truffula trees. So the flowers are a little bit more aromatic, and they're light, and they grow upward, right? So they're aromatic little puffballs of adorableness. And so that kind of gives you ideas as to the qualities that differentiate mimosa flower from mimosa bark. So we use mimosa flower when we need more of that upward, aromatic, fluffy, truffula tree kind of energy, and the bark when we need that, certainly that upward energy, that feeling of happiness, but with a little bit more of that grounding quality, right? So they're both good. I brought the bark because I have more of the bark. The flowers have been a little bit difficult to get lately.
Drive around Long Beach in a month or two.
I know. That's what I keep thinking. Is like there's so much mimosa growing everywhere, but yeah, it's not flowering yet. Let's see. It's very fun to harvest yourself and to make like glycerites or tinctures of mimosa. You do want to remember those flowers get a lot of bugs in them. They really, really love them. So you have to be very, very careful about bugs in your mimosa flowers. And then Silly Rabbit was asking, can the flowers help too? So yes, we just answered that for you. Let's see. So we have, what else? Oh, and then I have 2 plants that are more long-term supportive. Did I get, yeah, that's Damiana. Oh, I only brought one. I have one plant that is more supportive and nourishing, and that is Cotinopsis. Add it down here. So Cotinopsis is another plant from Chinese herbalism. It is a root. It's a nourishing, tonifying, energizing root, often referred to as poor person's ginseng. It's a plant that has similar qualities to the ginsengs, but more kind of immediate, not as profound. When you really need that deep support, you might want to go more for the true ginsengs. But when you need more kind of gentle support, Cotinopsis is lovely to throw into your blends. It tastes delightful. It's sweet and starchy and yummy and so good. You can even just eat the roots. I'll pass around some and you can just nibble on the root because I love just nibbling on the root. We were talking in class the other day about using Cotinopsis. You can make, like, one of my favorite dogs just went by. It was a 3-dog class. This is a good class, 3-dog class. Isn't he adorable? Yes. Yes. Big, huge, like a pit bull mastiff combination, and he's like black and white with black spots, and old dog, and he just goes walking with his mom. They're very cute. Cotinopsis. We were talking about Cotinopsis in class the other day, and yeah, people love Cotinopsis. I love the white that grows all over Florida. The flowers, it is. You have it in our yard. Oh, it's mimosa bark safe with autoimmune conditions. I want to try rhodiola, but it's too overstimulating. No, Haley, I find that to be true too. I didn't bring rhodiola. I had rhodiola. I was looking at the rhodiola, and then I hate rhodiola. It feels so horrible in my body. And if you take it, if you've not tried it, try some. Just chew on a piece of the root or take the tincture. Oftentimes people use rhodiola in a tablet or a capsule form, and so they never get a sense of what the flavor is. They never get a sense of the energetics because they're just taking the pill. But if you taste rhodiola, it has a very strong energetic pattern that makes my body feel like I'm just crawling. I want to hit someone. Because it's a really strong astringent. It's one of the strongest astringents around. Do I have any? No, I don't. Yes, I do. This is rhodiola tincture. So, now, I don't know why I did that. I just told you. Wow.
You better take a step back.
Julie, stop! In the spirit of community, I want to be with you folks. I want to be feeling what you're feeling. But yeah, I hate rhodiola. Other people feel really good with it, right? Other people, that tonification makes them feel like, oh, I'm brought together. I feel like I've got, focus, but that doesn't feel good in my body. You tried the tincture, so you know what I mean when you get that strong astringency. So mimosa bark, to my knowledge, is safe with autoimmune disorders. There's not a specific immunostimulating quality to it. I would say autoimmune imbalances look really, really different. And so I wouldn't actually want to say that across the board because there are other factors. You're always welcome to call me here at the shop if you have some specific questions that I can help you with, because I would want to know more information. Use the white. So I didn't. Do you know of a white mimosa?
I don't.
Yeah, all the ones that I've seen are pink, so you may have just a different. So Albizia julebritsen is the species, the official species, and I don't know if other species in the Albizia genus are medicinal. So that would be something that you'd want to see. Is look and see if someone's using that white flowered form. Get the name of the species, and then see if that is used. But I don't know. It's a really good question, and I don't know the answer to it. But I'd love to know. If you find out, I would love to know, because then next time someone asks me, I will know. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to make a tea blend with these herbs that I have here. I do have in there, some yerba mate, some green yerba mate, for caffeine. If you want to throw some caffeine in your formula, you go right ahead. It is your blend, and you can do that. Oh, I do have one more that I just noticed. So we have some yerba mate, clean source of caffeine. It does have caffeine. Sometimes you'll read in blurbs about yerba mate, and they'll say, oh, and there's no caffeine. It's stimulating without caffeine. Technically, the alkaloid that's in yerba mate is a chemical called matine, not caffeine. But chemically, it's virtually identical to caffeine, and it works in the body just like caffeine. And it is unhelpful for companies to say we don't have caffeine in our yerba mate, because yeah, you do. Let's just call it caffeine. It's a very similar alkaloid that does basically the same thing in the body. It's caffeine, but it also has other really wonderful effects and qualities, just like green tea and coffee and all of the other caffeine-containing plants. Most plants do not have caffeine. Caffeine, by the way, lots of people ask this when they're coming in. They want herbs that don't have caffeine. Caffeine is a pretty rare chemical in plants. It's almost never found. There's just a few species of plants that produce caffeine, and the vast majority of them don't. So if you are sensitive to caffeine, you want to know what plants have caffeine, but especially in terms of teas, there's just not that many of them. All right, so you are going to make 15 grams of a tea blend. So I'm going to give you scales. You're going to have a scale, you're going to have a bowl, and you are going to distribute that 15 grams, however much you want, amongst the herbs that we've just talked about. So say you want to make a blend that's gotu kola, and basil, gotu kola, and basil. You're looking for the brain function support. And yeah, you want some Oh, I have nettle in there too. That was the other one that I wanted to point out. Just because nourishment, no, Haley, I think that you mentioned that energy also feels like nourishment very often. Such an important point. I'm so glad that you brought that up. So we always want to give something that is nourishing. It's kind of a concept that you always want to put into any herbal formula. You want nourishment of whatever you're nourishing. So if it's your whole body, just a whole body nourishing agent, or do you have something that's nourishing specifically the organ or the system that you're focusing on? In some way, you want to be strengthening and nourishing the body beyond all of the other more specific qualities. So you can throw nettles in there because what plant is more kind of, I don't know, it's good for me and I want to throw it in there than nettles, right? So we could have nettles and rosemary. Oh, rosemary. Okay. So let's say this is going to be my blend. I'm going to try this blend out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, first, I would say, well, 4 is not a number that goes well with 15. So I could just make this 16 grams. Close enough. I'm going to modify it over 16 grams. And now I can go, well, I could do 1 part of each, right? If I did 1 part of each of these, I would have a formula that was equal amounts of all of the herbs. And I would end up with 4 parts to my formula. With 16 grams total, 4 goes into 16, 4 parts, 4 times. So each part is 4 grams. I am not able to write. So it would be 4 grams of gotu kola and 4 grams of each of them, totaling 16 grams. Right? Does that make sense? Yes. Now, if you decided, oh, but I really like gotu kola. I think that's just so important. I want to bump up the gotu kola. And I love nettles because who doesn't like nettles? Plus, I don't want rosemary. I don't want it to be too hot. So I'm going to increase the gotu kola and the nettles. And then the basil and rosemary, the aromatics, we're going to have there in a smaller amount. That's great. There's a different formula than our first one. The exact same herbs, but a very different formula because we've changed the ratios of the herbs. And now instead of 4 parts, we have 6 parts. Right? So 6 goes into 15, an awkward amount of times, but we'll say 6 times 3 is 18. We could do 3. We could do, so if we said 3 grams, we're going to increase it to 18. Don't keep on increasing your amounts, but you can do this. The difference between 15 grams and 18 grams is a small amount. It's like half a teaspoon, so don't worry about it. So if we use 18 grams then as our total, then we have 6 parts. 6 goes into 18 3 times. So each part weighs 3 grams. Now if we have 2 parts in our formula, how many grams of gotu kola are we going to use? 6 parts. So 6 grams. How much basil? 3 grams. Nettle? 6 grams. And rosemary? 3. Okay. So this is how herbalists, this is how we make our formulas using parts instead of I'm going to use a teaspoon of this and a tablespoon of that and half an ounce of that, because if you want to make more or less, then a teaspoon, tablespoon, half ounce is just a bother to adjust formulas and ratios for, right? But this is very easy. All I do is change the volume. Instead of using grams, I can use ounces, I could use quarts, I could use cups, I could use handfuls. Right? It's going to be less accurate because weight versus volume, but as long as you're keeping your measurement, your unit of measurement the same, then all you're doing is counting the number of your X unit of measurement. Okay? Does that feel comfortable? My blend is gotu kola 5, rosemary 5, tulsi 6, and a dash of cinnamon and honey, and yum. Yeah, silly rabbit, that is going to be very good. Oh, Marcos, I forgot that you were there. Of course you would know this. Other albicias are medicinal but different properties. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. There you go. Right, so there's your concepts and formulation. Are there any questions about that? Nope. All right. So what you're going to do is come and grab a scale and grab a bowl. These bowls we use in classes all the time. I have to show them out. I love these bowls so much. These are dental supply bowls. They're silicone, so they're non-reactive. You can measure things in them and then pour things out. They don't react to heat. They're They're so good. Nothing gets stuck in them. You can make big messes inside them and they clean out. I love these things. So you're gonna get a bowl. Formulating seems confusing to me. It will at first, plus I just threw it a whole bunch at you. So that was a kind of an unfair exposure to it. I'm gonna get them started and then I'll do one more kind of concept of formulation so that you can kind of get it, get another example of that, okay? So, so yeah, grab a scale, grab a bowl, grab the herbs. There's the bamboo spoons. The bamboo spoons are what we use for the herbs. So once you've used one herb, just leave the spoon in there so that other people can use it.
Just put it on the table.
Yeah, just put the whole container of them on the table. Alrighty. So, formulating. Any questions? Do you need any questions? Any answers from me? You know what you're doing. You all know what you're doing. Cool. I'm going to talk to you folks since you're not here playing, and I'm going to ignore you folks. There are bags, and there are labels right there on the table right next to the bowls right here for you to put your tea blends in. All right, so let's think of, now Haley, what plants would you want to use? What would be a blend that you would, or one of the herbs that you think would be fun to play with? Do you have an idea? And then we'll just make a formula right here and now. Because otherwise you just have to listen to them having fun without you, and that's no fun. If you can't think of one, that I will do just another formula. Let's think of a warming blend. So we're going to do a blend to increase circulation, right? Like the idea of the prickly ash, we're going to use prickly ash, sure, because maybe you want something to increase circulation, but that concept of milky oats, oh, there you go. Okay, cool. I will get back to that one later. So oats, tulsi, ginger, rosemary. Oh, that sounds delicious. Oats, tulsi, ginger, rosemary, marshmallow. And rosemary. Okay, so let's say these are the herbs that you're using. Now I would say one thing, Nohele, with the oats, you would be using oat straw. Milky oats, even when companies sell you milky oats as like oat tops, they don't have the qualities of milky oats. Once you dry oat tops, the chemistry changes from the chemistry of the fresh, unripe milky oats. So the qualities of milky oats, true milky oats, whenever you read or hear about herbalists talking about milky oats, we are always talking about the fresh extract in a tincture or glycerite form. If you have the dried oat tops, what you have is oat straw with some starch in it, which is still really lovely, but just to clarify that, because it can be so confusing because the herb companies sell milky oat tops and they don't differentiate that. So your oats are going to be oat straw, so nourishing, right? Lots of minerals in there, and those additional starches that are in the oat tops, because they did let the starch grain develop, does mean that the oat tops are more moistening than the oat straw. That's the big difference, is that whenever you have starch, you have the ability to hold moisture, and so you have something that is going to be more moistening. So the oat straw is going to be more nourishing, the oat tops is going to be more moistening, but they're both going to be beneficial. Okay, so this is going to be, we've got our nourishment, right? We've got tulsi, which is also nourishing to the nervous system, adaptogenic, brain, clarifying, focus. Ginger for getting that circulation, marshmallow to modify the effects of the ginger so it's not too heating, bring some more moisture into the body, and rosemary for that warming. So it's a nice balance. So if you started out, whenever you're starting out a formula, you can start out with a default of what would happen if I just made all of these equal amounts. What would be? That would be a perfectly fine formula. But it might be that much ginger, especially ginger and rosemary combined in a formula, might be very, very spicy, really spicy, more spicy than you would like. It might not be more spicy than you like because it depends on how much you like things spicy. But if you think, that's a great formula and you could stop right there. But if you was like, that's not the amount of ginger, and I do really want more nutrition, I do really want more of those minerals because mineral deficiency is such a big issue and one that we can really do a lot of good with herbs, we might want to increase those oats to 2, right? So, okay, now we've changed our formula, we've got a little bit more of that starchiness. Do I want to increase the Tulsi? Yeah, why not? Because it's Tulsi. Why not increase the Tulsi? So we can bring the Tulsi up. This is also, as we're increasing amounts of these, we are decreasing the total volume of the ginger and rosemary because they are less of the total portion of plant, right? We had 5 parts total, and they were 2/5 of that part, but now we have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we have 8 parts, and so they're a smaller total volume of the total, right? So we could do that. We could even bring ginger down to a 1/2 part and maybe ginger and rosemary to a 1/2 part. You want it warm, but not too warm. We want some of that warmth. And so now we would have a little bit of warmth there. Bring that marshmallow up, that would be great. Give it nice and moistening. So this formula would be significantly different than the formula that had equal parts of all of them. Both good formulas, just we're changing the nuance of what we want the formula to look like. In terms of how the person who's going to be drinking it, i.e. you, is going to look at it, right? So, and you're cold and dry. So you might want to, so you might not even, you're cold and dry. Yeah. Yeah, you might even want to go back up with that. Or maybe up with one with the rosemary if you have any gut issues. So if you think about where that cold is, here's a question to ask. Do you feel that cold systemically throughout the body? Does it feel like a cold stemming from circulation of energy? Does it feel like cold stemming from that core, right? Would it be more helpful? We were talking about the difference in the heating qualities of ginger versus rosemary. Which one would feel better? Or do both? You chose both of them. So you could have both of them in the full amount, or you could modify them there, right? So that's how we formulate. And then, so you'll just play around with the numbers, and sometimes you'll make a little bit of the recipe. This is what the recipe looks like a little bit. Drink some of the tea, go, wow, nope, I totally need a lot more ginger than I made in that formula. 1/2 part ginger did not work. I'm gonna go up to 2 because I just really like ginger with that. So fine, that would be another way of formulating. Infinite number, literally infinite number of ways that you can formulate and make it different, needing from circulation. So you might want to bring up that rosemary more then, right? Because rosemary has more of an affinity for circulation, right? For cold hands and feet. Yeah. So that's how you'll play around with your formulation, and it may be that you'll keep these same herbs, but change those ratios. Bring the rosemary up a little bit, see how that feels in your body. Bring the ginger up a little bit, see how that feels in your body, right? Also missing digestive fire. So well, rosemary, it isn't, I did separate out the circulation and the digestion, because it is helpful to think of them as separated out, but it's also helpful to remember it's all one body. And so even though we're taking rosemary to increase circulation and warmth in the periphery and warmth in the blood, it is also increasing digestive fire, right? Because fire is going to increase fire anywhere in the body, so the ginger has more of an affinity for that part of the body, right? So play around with it. So hopefully that concept helps, or that demonstration helps you a little bit more with the concept of formulation. And play around with it. You don't have to make all of them, but play around with formulas and just see how they feel. When you how they feel to your brain, right? How do you feel that a formula will be different with one type of formulation versus another type? You can know a lot. You understand enough about herbs that you'll be able to kind of get that sense and play around with it. It's very playful. It's a lovely playful experience. All right, so play with, think about energy. Think about what energy feels like in your body. Think about the different ways that you could conceptualize energy in your body, and play around with herbs and nutrients and foods and all of those things, because we have so many resources at our hands beyond just the herbs. But think about what types of things you could use to build up those reserves, to get that movement and flow of energy, to support that nervous system, to support brain function, to support the things in your body that need support. All right, I will see you next week. Take care. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye. And then turning this thing off.